Donald Trump, the 45th and 47th President of the United States, the strongest, most fearless, controversial, and unpredictable leader in the world. A man who, despite growing up in a wealthy family, had a tough childhood and, with his unique and powerful personality, reached some of the highest goals a person could dream of, making many impossible things possible. Donald grew up in a relatively wealthy and religious family. His father, Frederick Trump, who went by Fred, was in construction and had built himself up from nothing. But you might find it interesting that before his family moved to the US, they were European. His dad had emigrated from Germany to America, and his mother, Mary Ann McLeod, came over from Scotland with dreams of the American life. They met at a party in 1936, got married that same year, and started their family. Fred Trump was, in a way, Donald's main role model in life, and he passed on the hardships he'd faced to his son from the very beginning. Even though they were wealthy, the kids had to work during summers to earn their own pocket money. Maybe any of us would have complained to our parents, but Trump embraced these challenges, believing they were what helped him get where he is today. On the other hand, his mother Mary was very caring toward her kids and kept a peaceful atmosphere at home. Donald has always been proud of her because she held on strongly to her traditional values and roots. This is a trait Donald says he inherited from her, often saying that family roots and loyalty are incredibly important. Donald was the fourth of 5 siblings, and as a kid and teenager, he had a huge desire for competition and superiority. He always wanted to be ahead of everyone. One of his most famous childhood stories is that he once hit his music teacher because, as he later said in The Art of the Deal, he didn't know anything about music. His behavior got so out of hand that his father decided to send him to the New York Military Academy, a place with strict rules, discipline, and order. In that setting, Donald truly found himself. He learned how to compete, but within the rules and structure, and he developed leadership and management skills. By the time he graduated from the military academy, Donald was no longer the same person. He was a strong and prepared young man, ready to make the most of life. In his final years of high school, when it was time to choose a college, he had one goal: to go for the best. He started at Fordham University, but transferred 2 years later to Wharton at the University of Pennsylvania, one of the most prestigious business schools in America. We don't know exactly how his grades were, but Donald has always spoken of himself as one of the best students in the class. At Wharton, Donald learned how to evaluate the market and identify opportunities. His father's mindset helped him grow quickly in this field. During college, Donald realized how much he loved big deals and major projects. He was always thinking about how he could work on something huge and be in the spotlight. In fact, Donald has always believed that life is like a game, and if you understand the rules, you can win. After graduating from Wharton, Donald officially entered the family business. At the time, the business was mostly focused on housing projects in Brooklyn and Queens, New York, and involved rental buildings. But Donald wanted something bigger. Simple and routine projects didn't satisfy him. He always wanted more, and he thought New York, the financial and commercial capital of the US, was the perfect place to show his power. In his 20s, his goals became crystal clear, and he focused all his energy on becoming wealthy and powerful. Not only did Donald make a name for himself within the family business, but he also started expanding it. As we mentioned, his father mostly operated in Queens and Brooklyn, but Donald set his sights on Manhattan. One of his first major projects was constructing Trump Tower on Fifth Avenue. He built Trump Tower to showcase his ambition and power. Of course, it didn't happen overnight. When he started the project, it was 1979, and Donald was 33 years old, with a fair amount of experience under his belt. By the time it was completed in 1983, he was 37. In 1977, Trump married Ivana, a model and athlete who had recently emigrated to America. Their marriage attracted a lot of attention. Ivana became one of Donald's advisors in real estate, and together they made significant progress. As you'd expect, like most successful people, Trump had a tough time in his life, and he managed to come out on top, which is why he's successful now. In the 80s, he ran into financial troubles, but let me tell you, those issues were mostly due to the high-risk moves he was making himself. He always took on big, risky investments because he wanted to grow fast. And when the real estate market hit hard times, he ended up facing a lot of problems. By the early 90s, Trump was dealing with a serious financial crisis. Banks wouldn't loan him money because they didn't think his business was stable enough. That left him struggling with a bunch of debts and facing a tough time. During those years, more specifically in 1992, Ivana, his wife, filed for divorce because of financial issues and personal conflicts, and they ended up separating. But the same strong character he'd built since he was a kid, the one that brought him to where he was, helped him get through that crisis. That resilience his dad and the military academy had instilled in him really paid off. Then, in 1993, Trump met another woman named Marla Maples. This marriage was also pretty dramatic and made a lot of noise, but just like his first marriage, it didn't last. 6 years later, in 1999, Trump and Marla split up, and Trump had to pay her a significant amount in the divorce. His last wife, Melania, has been with him since they got married in 2005, and they're still together to this day. They met a year before Trump divorced Marla, and eventually, after 7 years, they tied the knot in Florida. It is interesting to know that Melania is 24 years younger than Donald Trump. They had a son, Barron, a year after their wedding in 2006. Aside from that, Trump has 3 kids from his first marriage and 1 from his second. Anyway, after Trump managed to pull himself out of trouble, he started expanding the Trump brand again, investing in all kinds of areas: hotels, casinos, and even golf courses. One famous project of his is Trump Tower in Atlantic City, which is a big casino with a hotel. Not all of his projects turned out as well as he'd hoped, and Trump had to negotiate with banks to save some of them. But like I said, when you have a personality like Trump's, no problem can take you down. His career was a bit of a roller coaster, but he was good enough at his work that he always survived just in time. Like I mentioned, Trump expanded his businesses into various fields. For instance, he bought the New Jersey Generals football team and got into the sports world. And then there are the golf courses he built all over the US and even abroad. These things boosted the value of the Trump brand because to people and his customers, Trump meant luxury, fun, and high social status. At this point, Trump was no longer just a name in New York. He was known throughout America and even globally in the real estate world. Some companies that didn't want to work directly with Trump would even pay him just to use his name and brand to give their projects credibility and fame. But Trump wasn't only in real estate and sports. In the late 90s, he entered the media world and accelerated his rise. In 2004, a TV show called The Apprentice started. Hosted by Trump, the show featured people competing for a chance to join Trump's management team. It quickly became a phenomenon, and even Trump himself became a famous, recognizable TV personality. The iconic line, "You're fired," seeped into American pop culture, and interestingly, the show's final episode became the second most watched TV show after the Super Bowl. On top of this, he held licenses for other shows like Miss Universe and Miss USA. Through these programs, Trump transformed his public image from a big businessman into a star. During these years, Trump also wrote several books like Think Big, How to Get Rich, The Art of the Comeback, and The Art of the Deal. Trump has always been and still is someone who wants to keep progressing and facing new challenges. By 2015, he had created a brand for himself that symbolized wealth, success, and even pride. This fame pushed him to consider entering the political world. But it's not like he suddenly decided to go into politics in 2015. He'd been talking about politics for a long time. He even mentioned in an interview with the New York Times in the 80s that he was considering a presidential run, but he never pursued it seriously. The reason Trump decided to run goes back to 2011 when he started criticizing Barack Obama, and I think we all know what he was picking on: Obama's birthplace. Trump was really pushing the rumor that Obama was born in Kenya, not America, insisting that he wasn't truly American and shouldn't be president. This stance gradually positioned him in people's minds as someone who could be a politician, and he realized he was gaining supporters. He started to see that if he ran, he might actually win. So, in 2015, he officially decided to enter politics. A guy with zero political experience wanted to become president of the most powerful country in recent decades. And once again, something helped him reach that goal: his personality. That incredibly independent, strong, and confident personality he'd built made people feel like he genuinely didn't like the current state of affairs and wanted change. He saw that the current leaders weren't capable of tackling the country's major challenges and knew that he could solve these problems from a different angle. One interesting thing to know is that he paid for his campaigns out of his own pocket, unlike others who take loans. He was absolutely amazing in debates and still is. Back in 2016, he fiercely attacked Hillary Clinton's policies and always put on a great show during the debates. One of the biggest issues he focused on was the Mexico Wall, where he straightforwardly suggested building a big, strong wall to prevent illegal immigrants from entering. This really struck a chord with the American people, as they were also worried about illegal immigration and the risks it posed to jobs and national security. Donald Trump had created a very solid public image for himself in the media. He always knew exactly how to stay in the spotlight, sometimes with his tweets, sometimes with his speeches, and sometimes with his actions. 2 days before the second national debate, a video from 2005 surfaced showing Trump talking about women and even mentioning his attempts to hit on a married woman. He described these comments as locker room talk and, for the first time during his campaign, apologized. Afterward, more than 25 women accused Trump of inappropriate sexual behavior, with incidents ranging from the 1970s to the 2000s, but Trump denied all of them. With the slogan, "Make America Great Again," he managed to secure a huge portion of the votes, proving the analysts wrong, and became the President of the United States. Once he became president, his policies often faced criticism. Domestically, Trump reduced taxes and reformed the immigration system. His most significant achievements were economic growth and a reduction in the unemployment rate. But globally, he was a completely different person. His approach was America First, which led to the renegotiation of trade agreements and heightened tensions with some of America's traditional allies. One of his most controversial foreign policies was his stance on Iran. From the start, Trump labeled the nuclear deal with Iran, signed during Barack Obama's presidency, as the worst deal in history. Trump believed that this deal not only wouldn't prevent Iran from obtaining nuclear weapons, but by unfreezing their assets, it would also strengthen Iran's regional influence, posing a serious threat to the region and American bases in the Middle East. By the way, if you want to learn more about US bases around the world, watch this video. But probably the most dramatic year of his life was 2020. It was one of the strangest and most controversial elections in the country's history. That year, Trump ran for his second term, with Joe Biden as the Democratic Party's candidate. COVID-19 had broken out, and Trump's management of the situation hadn't been the best, something the media and his opponents capitalized on against him. Biden, who campaigned on rescuing the country from the COVID crisis and reviving the damaged economy, won with 306 electoral votes to Trump's 232. Trump simply couldn't accept that he lost and claimed the election was rigged, calling it a stolen election. This put Trump back in the spotlight, with all the media locked in on this issue for a long time, and Trump stayed the center of attention. In the end, though, Trump couldn't prove his claims. But things took a darker turn in January 2021 when he was supposed to leave the White House. He told his supporters, "You won't win unless you fight." This was like pouring gasoline on an already burning forest. People's anger flared up, and thousands stormed the Capitol, leading to the death of several people. These scenes were broadcast worldwide, becoming one of the most significant political crises in recent American history. Following this event, Trump was impeached for the second time, and both Democratic and many Republican representatives asked him to step down. It's worth noting that Trump is the only president in U.S. history to be impeached twice in his first term. But ever since he left the White House, he's been saying he plans to return and run in the 2024 election. He's already started his campaigns, again making promises similar to 2016, like rebuilding the economy and dealing with illegal immigrants. After surviving 2 assassination attempts, Trump has now managed to win one of the most closely contested presidential races in U.S. history against Kamala Harris. Now, we'll have to wait and see what role he'll play on the global stage and whether he'll act the same as he did during his first term as president. Based on everything we've discussed, you could call him the strongest, boldest, most controversial, and most unpredictable president or even person in the world. What do you think?